This is the quiet shift people hit right before life finally starts paying them back fairly. Be careful with this video. Once you see the pattern that keeps your effort from turning into actual results, you won't be able to keep lying to yourself about bad luck. Watch it till the end if you're ready for life to start meeting you with real opportunities instead of near misses. You know the pattern. You send the email, but it sits in drafts for 3 days while you perfect the wording. You build momentum on a project, then let it stall when the first obstacle appears. You start a health routine that works for a week until life gets busy and you're back where you started. You have conversations that go in circles without ever resolving anything. You save money only to watch it disappear on an unexpected expense that arrives the same week your raise gets delayed again. There's also the near-miss cycle that shows up everywhere. The job opportunity that seems perfect until they go with an internal candidate. The relationship that builds beautifully for 6 weeks, then fizzles when it's time to get real. The creative work that feels so close to breakthrough, but never quite makes it across the finish line. The client who loves your proposal and promises to get back to you, then disappears for 2 months before sending a polite rejection. Maybe you're the person who starts strong, then gradually loses steam because the initial excitement isn't sustainable long-term. You join the gym with genuine enthusiasm, go every day for 2 weeks, then miss 1 day and somehow never return. Or perhaps you're the opposite, researching and planning endlessly, but never quite feeling ready to begin, waiting for perfect conditions that never align. You might be the one who undercharges for everything because asking for what you're worth feels too aggressive, then wonders why money always feels tight despite working constantly. The loops that feel like permanent reality. These aren't random setbacks or evidence that success isn't meant for you. They're loops, patterns so embedded in your daily routine that they feel like permanent features of your reality instead of learned responses to old fears about visibility, success, or having more when you're used to having less. Each month feels like the same story with different details. New opportunities, same hesitation, different circumstances, identical internal conversation about timing and worthiness. It's like repainting a room while all the furniture stays in the same place. The surface looks different, but you're still navigating the same cramped space, still bumping into the same obstacles that keep you from moving freely. You might switch strategies, download new apps, even change environments, but somehow you end up recreating similar outcomes because the underlying system didn't change. The reason surface changes don't create lasting results is that they're not addressing what generates those outcomes in the first place. When someone trades one form of procrastination for another, when they replace one excuse with a more sophisticated version of the same avoidance, when they swap one limiting belief for a different limitation that feels more reasonable. They've changed the packaging, but not the pattern. Real change happens at the level of the operating system. It's about updating the beliefs, habits, and automatic responses that create those day-to-day outcomes across all areas of life. But your brain isn't sabotaging you when it defaults back to familiar patterns. It's doing what brains do, which is conserve energy and stick to routes it knows. Every time you respond to challenge or opportunity in the same way, whether that's overthinking until the moment passes, avoiding difficult conversations, or saying yes to things that drain you because no feels too risky, you're strengthening neural pathways that make those responses more automatic. When pressure builds, your nervous system reaches for the program it's run before, even when that program consistently produces results you don't want. The perfectionism that prevents starting, the people-pleasing that leaves no energy for your own priorities, the undercharging that keeps you perpetually behind, the overthinking that turns simple tasks into complex projects. These were strategies that helped you navigate earlier versions of your life. They made sense when they formed. But strategies that outlive their usefulness become invisible barriers to the reciprocity you're actually seeking. The moment where transformation actually begins. There's a moment that changes everything, though. It's when you catch yourself mid-pattern and realize you're watching it happen, rather than just being swept along by it. Maybe you're hovering over the Buy Now button for something you don't really need, and suddenly you can see the impulse clearly. Maybe you're drafting a long apology instead of a clean no, and you pause, recognizing the people-pleasing pattern. Maybe you're about to shelve the pitch that would move your week forward, and you notice the fear disguised as needing more time to prepare. That awareness isn't trivial or insignificant. It's the first genuine break in the loop, because for the first time you're conscious enough to choose differently. Most people dismiss these moments because they feel so ordinary, so undramatic. But that microsecond of space between impulse and action is where transformation actually begins. Here's what shifts when you start seeing recurring patterns as information instead of permanent features of your reality. Instead of, "This is just how life is for me," the question becomes, what is this pattern trying to protect me from? Every repeated outcome becomes data about what felt necessary in an earlier chapter, but might not be serving you anymore. The loop isn't evidence that you're not meant to receive good things, or that the universe has forgotten about you. It's feedback. It's life's way of saying that the current system has been outgrown and something new is ready to emerge. The universe, it turns out, is constantly responding to what your system is actually set up to notice and act on. When you're calibrated for struggle, struggle is what gets highlighted and reinforced. When your attention is trained on what's missing, missing is what dominates your experience. But when your internal system begins to shift, so does what shows up in your external world. When that reframe settles in, you start noticing subtle signs that a different way of being is already developing. A dormant conversation thread suddenly revives with exactly the information you needed. You sleep better one night without changing anything specific about your routine. A modest refund appears in your account for something you'd forgotten about. You place a small boundary and it holds without the drama you expected. You ask for something simple and receive a clear yes instead of the runaround you're used to. You answer a message sooner and more directly than usual, without the typical overthinking. A conversation stays honest without you having to force depth or manage how you're received. You send one email you've been avoiding and get a surprisingly positive response. You take a short walk instead of scrolling and return with clarity about a decision you've been postponing. These aren't dramatic shifts, but they share something important. They feel lighter to act on than the efforts you used to force. There's less resistance, less internal negotiation about whether you deserve good outcomes. How small alignments compound into real momentum. Watch what happens when these small alignments start compounding. You move your phone out of the bedroom and sleep better. Better sleep means you wake up with more energy and clarity. More energy means you tackle the small task you've been postponing for weeks. Completing that task gives you momentum to send the proposal you've been perfecting for months. The response to that proposal opens a door you didn't know existed. You honor one boundary with someone who's been taking advantage of your time and suddenly have space to focus on what actually matters to you. That focus leads to progress on work that energizes rather than drains you. Progress on meaningful work builds confidence to have a conversation you've been avoiding. The conversation clarifies something that's been consuming mental energy, freeing you to think about possibilities instead of problems. Each change feels manageable in isolation, but together they create momentum that carries you into entirely different territory. The same opportunities that used to overwhelm you start feeling approachable. Work that used to drain you starts energizing you because it aligns with your actual interests and skills. Relationships that used to require constant management start feeling easier because you're no longer performing or fixing or managing everyone's emotions. This momentum builds because alignment creates efficiency. When you're working with your natural rhythms instead of against them, everything requires less force. You're not constantly managing how others perceive you or predicting what outcome will prove your worth. You're not forcing results or talking yourself into opportunities that feel wrong. You're positioning yourself where good things can find you instead of chasing them down. The backwards approach. Most people take this is where most people have been approaching reciprocity backwards. They've been trying to control outcomes, manage every variable, predict and prevent every possible disappointment. They focus on perfect timing, ideal conditions, and getting everything lined up before they start. But what looks like the universe rewarding you is actually the natural result of aligned inputs meeting right-time opportunities. Instead of waiting for perfect moments, you become someone who creates momentum with imperfect action. Instead of hoping external circumstances will align, you become someone who designs internal conditions that make progress feel natural. Instead of pleading for breaks, you become someone who positions for them through consistent, aligned behavior. The focus shifts from managing the external world to creating internal conditions that make reciprocity more likely and visible. Your brain has what neuroscientists call the reticular activating system, an attention filter that decides what information reaches conscious awareness. Think of it like a search function that highlights whatever you've programmed it to notice. When you're considering buying a certain car, you suddenly see that model everywhere. When you learn a new song, you start hearing it in unexpected places. The information was always there, but your attention wasn't tuned to receive it. When your priorities begin to shift, your attention filter shifts with it. You start noticing opportunities that were invisible when you were focused on what wasn't working. The chronic people pleaser starts recognizing reciprocity when it appears. The chronic perfectionist starts seeing places where good enough actually moves things forward. The chronic procrastinator starts noticing that small actions often lead to unexpected openings. Same environment, different perception. What changes when you step into the identity of someone who doesn't wait for the universe to bless them, but designs conditions that make rewards likely and visible? Someone who doesn't just hope for better circumstances, but creates systems that generate sustainable progress. Someone who doesn't just wish for recognition, but builds value that's hard to ignore. You stop being someone things happen to, and start being someone who arranges for good things to happen. Arrange the inputs. Let the universe meet you there. When the filter shifts, opportunities get loud. Small alignments earn big returns. Stop pleading. Start positioning. Design the day that deserves the reward. How this transformation unfolds in real life. This transformation often looks unremarkable from the outside, but feels profound from within. Someone retires a commitment that's been draining their energy for months and suddenly has space to think clearly about what they actually want. They start sleeping better because they're not carrying the stress of obligations that don't fit. With better sleep comes steadier energy throughout the day. With steadier energy comes the bandwidth to send 2 messages they've been avoiding for weeks. One message leads to a conversation that clarifies a misunderstanding that's been consuming mental space for months. The other leads to an opportunity they weren't actively seeking, but turns out to be exactly what they needed. They ship a modest offer they've been refining instead of waiting for it to be perfect. The offer gets a positive response and a referral to someone else who might be interested. They accept a low-stakes social invitation they would normally decline because they actually have energy for connection. At the gathering, they meet someone who appreciates their perspective and has resources that complement their skills. Within weeks, they're experiencing what looks like the universe rewarding them. A client who fits their skills and pays fairly. A social rhythm that energizes rather than drains them. Unexpected money from a source they'd forgotten about. From the outside, it might look sudden or magical. From the inside, it's the natural result of tuned attention and aligned action. The opportunities were probably always there, but they couldn't perceive the connections when their system was calibrated for struggle and scarcity. You're not waiting for permission to step into this version of yourself. You're not waiting for ideal conditions or cosmic signs before you start positioning for what you want. The shift is happening right now, in the space between recognizing the old patterns and choosing something different. Every time you take the walk instead of scrolling, every time you send the message instead of perfecting it endlessly, every time you honor a boundary that matters, you're building the system that attracts reciprocity. If you made it this far, you're already in the shift. The fact that these words resonate means your attention filter is already changing. The universe rewarding you isn't some distant event waiting to happen. It's the natural expression of a life system that's been quietly reorganizing around who you're becoming. It shows up as conversations that flow easily, work that pays fairly, relationships that don't require constant maintenance, and a sense that your efforts are finally generating returns. Keep tuning your attention. Keep making choices from alignment rather than desperation. Keep designing inputs that support what you're trying to create rather than what you're trying to escape. The system is already working with you. You just needed to remember how to work with it.